What if I told you that the reason you're still losing money has nothing to do with the chart in front of you? That every indicator you've learned, every pattern you've memorized, every strategy you've tested is just noise compared to the 3 invisible rules that separate the top 1% of traders from everyone else. These rules have nothing to do with technical analysis, and everything to do with what happens inside your mind before you even click the buy button. Today, I'm going to walk you through the 3 psychological frameworks that elite traders live by. Frameworks that most people will never hear about because they're too busy chasing the next setup, the next signal, the next illusion of control. Let me take you back to a moment that changed everything for me. It was a Tuesday morning, and I had just blown through 15% of my account in 3 trades. 3 trades. I sat there staring at the screen, feeling my chest tighten, my hands shaking slightly as I moved the mouse over the entry button again. I was about to do it again. I was about to revenge trade, and I knew it, but I couldn't stop myself. The market had taken something from me, and I wanted it back. That feeling, that burning need to prove I was right, to recover what I lost, to show the market who was in control, that feeling is what keeps 90% of traders trapped in a cycle of self-destruction. And here's the truth that no one wants to admit. The market doesn't care about you. It doesn't know your name. It doesn't remember your last trade. It's not out to get you. And it's not trying to reward you. It just moves, indifferent and relentless, while you sit there attaching meaning, attaching emotion, attaching your entire sense of self-worth to red and green candles on a screen. The top 1% of traders understand something that took me years to learn. Trading is not a battle against the market. It's a battle against yourself. It's a war fought in the silent moments between seeing an opportunity and taking action. It's fought in the seconds after a loss when you have to decide whether you're going to react emotionally or respond strategically. It's fought every single day when you wake up and choose discipline over impulse, patience over greed, and detachment over desperation. And that's where the first rule comes in. The first rule that the top 1% follow religiously, the rule that most traders never even think about because they're too obsessed with finding the perfect entry. This rule is called emotional detachment, and it's the foundation of everything else. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It doesn't mean you become a robot or that you stop feeling anything when you trade. It means you stop letting your emotions make your decisions. It means you separate your identity from your trades. It means you treat every loss as information, not as a personal attack. It means you stop saying things like, "The market screwed me," or "I knew I should have trusted my gut." And you start saying things like, "That trade didn't meet my criteria," or "I deviated from my plan." And here's what I learned. This shift in language, this shift in perspective, is what allows elite traders to stay calm when everyone else is panicking. Because they've trained themselves to see trading as a game of probabilities, not a validation of their intelligence or worth. Think about the last time you took a loss. Really think about it. What did you feel? Anger? Frustration? Embarrassment? Did you immediately want to jump back in and make it back? Did you start questioning your strategy, your ability, your decision to even be a trader in the first place? That reaction, that emotional spiral, is the enemy. That's what's keeping you stuck. Because when you're emotionally invested in every single trade, you're not making decisions based on logic and probability. You're making decisions based on fear and ego. You're trying to prove something to yourself, to the market, to the people who doubted you. And the market doesn't care about any of that. The market will take your money whether you're confident or terrified, whether you're right or wrong, whether you deserve it or not. The traders who make it, the ones who survive long enough to actually become profitable, they've learned to detach. They've learned to predefine their risk before they even enter a trade. They've learned to accept that risk emotionally before they click the button. They know that if they risk 1% of their account on a trade, and that trade goes to zero, they've already accepted that loss. It doesn't surprise them. It doesn't anger them. It's just part of the process. They've built what I call psychological immunity, the ability to withstand volatility, losses, and uncertainty without being emotionally derailed. This immunity is what allows them to trade with consistency. It's what allows them to follow their rules, even when their gut is screaming at them to do something different. It's what allows them to walk away from the screen and live their lives without obsessively checking positions or refreshing charts every 5 minutes. But here's where most people get stuck. They think emotional detachment is something you either have or you don't. They think it's a personality trait, something you're born with. And that's not true. Emotional detachment is a skill. It's something you practice, something you build through repetition and self-awareness. It starts with recognizing your triggers. What makes you emotional when you trade? Is it a losing streak? Is it missing a move? Is it seeing other traders post their wins on social media? Once you know your triggers, you can start building systems around them. You can create rules that protect you from yourself. For example, if you know that losing 2 trades in a row makes you want a revenge trade, you create a rule that says after 2 losses, I stop trading for the day. No exceptions. No negotiating with yourself. You just stop. This is what elite traders do. They don't rely on willpower or motivation. They rely on systems. They rely on rules that remove emotion from the equation. Because they know that in the heat of the moment, when the market is moving fast and their heart is pounding, they can't trust their emotions. They can only trust the rules they set when they were calm, when they were thinking clearly, when they were detached. And this brings us to something important. Detachment doesn't mean you trade without passion or purpose. It means you trade without attachment to outcomes. You focus on execution, not results. You focus on following your plan, not on making money. Because here's the paradox. The more you chase profits, the more they elude you. The more you obsess over winning, the more you sabotage yourself. But when you shift your focus to process, to discipline, to executing your plan with precision, the profits start to come naturally. Not because you're forcing them, but because you're creating the conditions for them to emerge. Let me give you an example. Imagine 2 traders looking at the same setup. Trader A sees the setup and immediately feels excitement. This is it, they think. This is the one that's going to make up for yesterday's losses. They jump in without checking their risk parameters. They don't predefine their stop loss. They don't calculate position size. They just click buy because they're emotionally invested in being right. Now imagine Trader B. They see the same setup. They feel the same initial excitement. But instead of acting on it, they pause. They check their trading plan. They ask themselves, does this meet my criteria? They calculate the risk. They determine the position size. They set their stop loss. And only then, after going through their process, do they enter the trade. Both traders took the same trade, but one is trading from emotion and the other is trading from discipline. And over hundreds of trades, thousands of trades, that difference compounds. Trader A is going to blow up their account eventually because they're relying on luck and impulse. Trader B is going to steadily grow their account because they're relying on process and detachment. This is the invisible edge that the top 1% have. It's not that they're smarter. It's not that they have better strategies or access to better information. It's that they've mastered the art of emotional control. They've trained themselves to operate from a place of calm authority rather than reactive desperation. And this training doesn't happen overnight. It happens through thousands of small decisions. It happens every time you feel the urge to chase a trade and you don't. Every time you feel the fear of missing out and you stay disciplined. Every time you take a loss and you analyze it objectively instead of emotionally. These moments, these tiny victories over your own impulses, these are what build the psychological foundation that allows you to trade at an elite level. Now, let's talk about the second rule, because emotional detachment alone isn't enough. You can be the most emotionally controlled trader in the world, but if you don't manage your capital correctly, you're still going to lose. The second rule that the top 1% follow is strategic capital management. And this is where most traders completely fall apart. Because they treat every trade like it's going to be a winner. They risk too much. They don't diversify their risk. They don't think about drawdowns or how much capital they can afford to lose before their psychology breaks. And this is why 90% of traders fail. Not because they don't know how to read charts, but because they don't know how to protect their capital. Here's something that took me years to understand. Your edge in the market isn't your strategy. It's your ability to stay in the game long enough for that strategy to play out. If you blow up your account, it doesn't matter how good your strategy is. It doesn't matter how many patterns you know or how many hours you've studied. You're done. You're out. And you have to start over, and most people never come back from that. They lose their confidence. They lose their capital. And they walk away believing that trading doesn't work, when the truth is they just didn't manage their risk correctly. The top 1% understand that capital preservation is the ultimate edge. They understand that every trade is just one trade in a series of thousands. They're not trying to hit a home run. They're trying to stay in the game, to compound their edge over time, to survive the inevitable losing streaks that every trader faces. Think about it like this. If you risk 10% of your account on every trade, you only need to lose 10 trades in a row to be wiped out. And 10 losing trades in a row is not some rare, catastrophic event. It happens. It happens to everyone. But if you risk 1% of your account on every trade, you can lose 50 trades in a row and still have half your capital left. You give yourself room to breathe. You give yourself room to learn. You give yourself room to survive the periods when nothing is working and the market feels like it's moving against you no matter what you do. This is what strategic capital management looks like. It's not glamorous. It's not exciting. But it's what keeps you alive. The elite traders I know, the ones who've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 years, they all have one thing in common. They're obsessed with risk, not with profits, with risk. They think about risk before they think about reward. They think about what they can afford to lose before they think about what they might gain. They ask themselves, if this trade goes completely wrong, how much am I willing to lose? And they make that decision before they enter, not during, not after, before. Because once you're in the trade, your judgment is compromised. Once you're in, you're emotionally invested. You start hoping. You start justifying. You start telling yourself stories about why the market will turn around. But before you enter, when you're still detached, that's when you can think clearly. That's when you can make rational decisions about risk. And here's the thing about risk management that most people don't realize. It's not just about position sizing. It's about understanding correlation. It's about not putting all your capital into trades that are essentially the same bet. It's about diversifying across different opportunities so that if one sector or one setup fails, you're not completely exposed. The top 1% think about their portfolio as a whole. They think about how much total risk they have on at any given time. They think about how correlated their trades are. They think about worst-case scenarios and stress, test their account against those scenarios. This is what separates professionals from gamblers. Professionals manage risk systematically. Gamblers just hope for the best. Let me tell you about a period in my trading when I learned this lesson the hard way. I had a strategy that was working incredibly well. I was winning trade after trade, and I started to feel invincible. I started increasing my position sizes. I started taking more trades. I started risking more because I was convinced that I had figured it out, that I had found the edge that was going to make me rich. And then the market changed. The strategy stopped working. And because I had increased my risk, because I had gotten overconfident, I gave back months of gains in a matter of weeks. It was devastating. But it taught me something crucial. It taught me that no edge lasts forever. It taught me that the market is always evolving. And if you're not managing your risk, if you're not protecting your capital, one bad period can wipe out everything you've built. The top 1% never forget this. They never get complacent. They never stop thinking about risk, even when things are going well. Especially when things are going well. Because that's when you're most vulnerable to overconfidence, to taking on too much risk, to believing that you're untouchable. Strategic capital management also means understanding your own psychology. It means knowing how much you can afford to lose before your trading starts to deteriorate. Everyone has a pain threshold. Everyone has a point where losses start to affect their decision-making. Elite traders know where that point is, and they structure their risk so they never reach it. They know that if they lose more than a certain percentage of their account, they're going to start making emotional decisions. They're going to start revenge trading. They're going to start deviating from their plan. So they set hard limits. They say, if I lose 5% of my account in a month, I stop trading and I reassess. No exceptions. This kind of discipline, this kind of self-awareness, this is what keeps them in the game when everyone else is blowing up. Now we come to the third rule, and this is the rule that ties everything together. This is the rule that transforms good traders into great traders, and great traders into elite traders. The third rule is continuous learning and adaptation, because the market is not static. It changes, it evolves. What worked last year might not work this year. What worked this month might not work next month. And if you're not constantly learning, if you're not constantly adapting, you're going to get left behind. You're going to plateau, and eventually, you're going to start losing. The top 1% understand this deeply. They understand that trading is not about finding one strategy and riding it forever. It's about building a system of learning and adaptation that allows you to evolve with the market. This is where most traders fail. They learn one strategy, and they cling to it like a life raft. They convince themselves that if they just execute it perfectly, if they just follow the rules, it will work. And maybe it does work for a while. But then the market changes, and instead of adapting, they keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. They blame the market. They blame bad luck. They blame everything except the fact that they've stopped learning. The elite traders I know, they're obsessed with learning. They review every trade. They keep detailed journals. They analyze not just what happened, but why it happened. They ask themselves, did I follow my rules? Did I manage my emotions? Did I size my position correctly? Did I execute at the right time? And when they find mistakes, they don't beat themselves up. They treat those mistakes as data. They treat them as opportunities to improve. This is what continuous learning looks like. It's not reading books or watching videos, although those things can help. It's a systematic, disciplined approach to analyzing your own performance. It's about being brutally honest with yourself. It's about being willing to admit when something isn't working and having the humility to change. Most traders don't have this humility. They're too attached to their ego, too afraid of being wrong. But the top 1%, they're not afraid of being wrong. They expect to be wrong. They know that trading is about probabilities, and even the best strategies lose sometimes. What they care about is learning from those losses, extracting every bit of value they can, and using that information to improve their next trade. Let me tell you about a trader I know who embodies this principle perfectly. He's been trading for over 15 years, and he's consistently profitable year after year. But here's the thing. His strategy today looks nothing like his strategy 5 years ago. He's constantly evolving. He's constantly testing new ideas, refining his approach, adapting to market conditions. And he does this through a rigorous process of journaling and review. Every single trade he takes, he writes down the setup, the reasoning, his mental state, the expected risk and reward, and the actual outcome. And then, at the end of every week, he reviews those trades. He looks for patterns. He looks for recurring mistakes. He looks for opportunities to improve. This process, this commitment to learning, this is what keeps him ahead of the curve. This is what allows him to adapt when the market changes, instead of getting stuck in old patterns. Adaptation also means being willing to walk away from strategies that are no longer working. It means having the courage to say, this used to work, but it doesn't anymore, and I need to find something new. This is incredibly difficult for most people. We get attached to our strategies. We invest time and energy into them. We have emotional connections to them. But the market doesn't care about your emotional connections. The market only cares about what works right now, and if you're not willing to let go of what's not working, you're going to keep losing. The top 1% are ruthless about this. They're not sentimental. They're pragmatic. If something stops working, they cut it. They move on. They find something else. And they do this without drama, without self-pity, without blaming anyone or anything. They just adapt. Another critical aspect of continuous learning is learning from wins, not just losses. Most traders only analyze their losing trades. They think that's where the lessons are. But the truth is, your winning trades can teach you just as much. They can show you what you're doing right. They can reveal patterns in your execution. They can help you understand why certain setups work and others don't. Elite traders create what I call playbooks of successful execution. They document their best trades, the ones where everything went right, and they study those trades just as carefully as they study their mistakes. Because they want to replicate that success. They want to understand the conditions that led to those wins so they can recognize those conditions in the future. Continuous learning also involves staying curious. It involves asking why. Why did the market move this way? Why did this trade work? Why did that one fail? The top 1% are relentlessly curious. They're never satisfied with surface-level answers. They dig deeper. They want to understand the underlying dynamics, the psychology of other market participants, the factors that influence price movement. This curiosity keeps them engaged. It keeps them learning. It keeps them sharp. And it prevents them from falling into complacency, which is one of the biggest killers of trading success. Now, here's where it all comes together. These 3 rules: emotional detachment, strategic capital management, and continuous learning and adaptation, they're not separate. They're interconnected. They form a system. Detachment allows you to manage your capital rationally. Capital management gives you the longevity to learn and adapt. And learning and adaptation reinforce your detachment by showing you that every trade is just data, just another opportunity to improve. When you integrate these 3 rules into your trading, something remarkable happens. You stop being reactive. You stop chasing. You stop letting fear and greed control your decisions. Instead, you operate from a place of calm clarity. You see opportunities objectively. You evaluate risk logically. You execute according to plan. And when things don't go your way, you don't panic. You don't spiral. You just analyze, adjust, and move forward. This is what it means to trade beyond the charts. It means understanding that the charts are just tools. They're just information. The real game is happening inside your mind. The real battle is between discipline and impulse, between patience and greed, between ego and humility. And the traders who win that battle, the ones who master their psychology, who protect their capital, who never stop learning, those are the traders who make it into the top 1%. Those are the traders who survive when everyone else quits. Those are the traders who compound their skills and their capital year after year, building something sustainable, something real. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one of these rules and commit to it today. If you struggle with emotional control, create a rule that forces you to pause before every trade. If you struggle with risk management, calculate your position size before you enter and stick to it no matter what. If you struggle with learning, start a trading journal tonight and commit to reviewing it every single week. Just pick one thing and do it consistently. Because knowledge without action is worthless. You can watch every video, read every book, study every chart pattern, but if you don't apply what you learn, if you don't build these principles into your trading, nothing will change. You'll keep making the same mistakes. You'll keep losing the same way. And eventually, you'll burn out and walk away. But if you take action, if you commit to mastering these 3 rules, if you commit to trading beyond the charts, you give yourself a real chance. You give yourself the foundation that every elite trader has. You give yourself the tools to survive the inevitable rough patches. You give yourself the mindset to grow, to adapt, to thrive in a market that chews up and spits out 90% of people who try. This isn't easy. It's not supposed to be easy. If it were easy, everyone would do it. But it is simple. Master your emotions. Protect your capital. Never stop learning. These 3 rules, followed consistently, will transform your trading. They'll transform your mindset. They'll transform your results. And they'll separate you from the crowd who's still obsessing over the next indicator, the next signal, the next illusion that success comes from something outside themselves. The truth is, everything you need to succeed is already inside you. You just have to build the discipline to access it. You have to build the patience to let it develop. You have to build the humility to keep learning even when it's uncomfortable. And when you do that, when you commit to this path, you become more than just a trader. You become a student of the market, a master of yourself, and a builder of something lasting. This is the journey. This is what the top 1% know. This is what separates those who make it from those who don't. Now it's your turn. Take what you've learned today and make it real. Make it part of your process. Make it part of who you are as a trader. Because the market isn't going to change. The only thing that can change is you. And when you change, when you truly commit to these principles, everything else will follow.